Do you have an Apple product, maybe an iPhone or a MacBook? Then go to Apple Podcasts now and review You Hate to See It. We would really appreciate it. Reviewing us helps get our podcast out there and helps us find guests. Just search You Hate to See It and give us a review now. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of You Hate to See It, but love to hear it. I'm Adam.
I'm Nick.
And today we are joined by probably a face that you've seen many times. He's an actor from Terminator 2, Planet of the Apes, Garfield, and many, many more, 124 movie credits to be exact. Mark Christopher Lawrence, how you doing?
I'm good. There's actually more than that because I started before there was internet.
Oh man. So what are let's see, let me pull up your IMDb. What credits do you have there earlier than, let's see, we have your first credit is O'Hara from 1987 and Caddyshack 2 from 1988. Those are your
Hill
first
Street
two.
Blues was my first job in 1986.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of stuff that's not on there that I don't know, either the producers had moved on out of the industry or passed away or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a bunch of stuff that I did, in the early years that's not on there.
Oh, okay, cool. So what would you say your total number is now?
Probably close to 200.
Closer to 200. How do you have the time for all of that?
Well, I mean, it doesn't like early in career, it's like you're doing, under fives, so you're one day and out.
Yeah.
And so and it comes, in bunches. Like you'll be working, you're busy for a while, and then you're slow for a while. And so there's always time.
Yeah. Well, so like I mentioned at the top, you were in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and I was curious, like, because James Cameron's become such a huge name. What differences did you notice with directors like James Cameron, who also wrote the script, versus directors who don't write their own scripts? Like, where are some of the differences?
Well, I think that the directors that write their own script, their vision stays in one place, so you don't have to. They don't have to depend on somebody else understanding their vision for peace, and I think it keeps it just more coherent. But then you have directors that don't write, and they'll look at something and get on the same page with the writer or have a better idea, and those sometimes work out great too. So just depends on who's working, I guess.
What was James Cameron's like process? Like, what was like when he was directing? How did he work?
He's very prepared. James Cameron comes to work ready to go. He knows what he wants to see, and he knows exactly how he wants it to be shot. And he doesn't waste a lot of time, fiddling around with it. He's like, okay, this is the shot. We're gonna set it up like this. Like that scene where we're in the hospital, we're chasing Linda Hamilton down the hallway. We shot that scene at like 3 a.m, and we probably ran that hallway 30 times. But he had several cameras set up, and but he knew exactly what he wanted to see. So we come around in the corner. At one point, he says, "Hey, you guys need to stay a little closer to her." And we were like, "Well, our characters are burly attendants, so you're gonna have to slow her down."
Yeah. So those 30 takes, like, does he give any opportunities to improvise or have your own voice as an actor, or is he just like, this is what I want, shut up and do your job?
Well, he kind of wants what he wants, but then like I was supposed to work 2 days, possibly 3, so they booked me for a week, and then he would ask me, "Hey, what would you say right here?" And I'd say something. He'd go, "Oh yeah, come on." And so I ended up working 6 weeks
Mhm.
and then another 2 weeks of pickup shots, and another 2 weeks of looping, and so it was great. It was at the time it was my biggest job ever.
Yeah. All right. Um, what was Linda Hamilton like? What was like working with her?
She was very sweet, just a really sweet lady. She was in incredible shape. She was working out, 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day. Her twin sister is in the movie as well.
Oh.
There's a scene where I guess she's dreaming that this apocalypse happens, and she's hanging onto this fence looking at the playground. That's her sister. That's not Linda. But Linda was very sweet, very, very nice. Every day I came to work, she gave me a hug and a kiss and said, "Hey, welcome to set." And then I met her again on Chuck years later. It was just still the same sweet lady.
Well, and speaking of Chuck, I wanted to get into that a little bit. How did that really affect your life at all, or working with the now Shazam? Like, what was that like?
Well, Zach is probably one of the most generous actors I've ever worked with. He really a good dude and very talented. And our cast was huge. We had 10 people in the series regular cast, and usually you would expect that there'd be some issues, but no problems. And it was fun to go to work, and as far as the way it affected my life, it was the longest series that I'd ever been on. I'd been on several series, but that's the longest one. And one way it affected me in a negative way was that commercially I couldn't get out for commercials. It's like they'd say, "Well, he's too recognizable. Okay, make him a spokesperson. He's not a big enough name." It's like, well, that's just kind of dumb, isn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely like, well, that sucks. Like, I'm too famous and not famous enough all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm on your podcast, so people can see my name and put the name with the face, because it directly affects what you get paid.
We're gonna rename the podcast "Too Famous but Not Famous Enough."
Well, so I saw Terminator when I was probably, I want to say like 10. My dad showed it to me, which is way too young for that movie. That's way too young. That was the first time I saw nudity, was in Terminator.
Was there nudity in that?
Yeah, there is, because that's the first time I saw it.
Really?
Yeah.
You sure you weren't watching the porn version of it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I am almost certain. I need to go back and rewatch Terminator. I haven't seen it, but like I'm almost certain.
Okay.
If not, I was definitely watching the wrong movie.
I think the first one has a sex scene.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think Linda Hamilton's like full blown nude in it. I think it's
because she gets knocked up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
at the very least there was a tit shot. At the very least,
it was the 90s, 80s, and 90s. Like that stuff happened a lot.
Yeah. So after the Terminator, the movie I know you from is Crimson Tide. So that was one of my favorites with my dad. Was that? That's one of my all-time favorite movies. Like just straight up. Because it's a huge cast, because you have Gene Hackman, you have Denzel Washington.
And a lot of working actors are in that thing.
Yeah, those are the two I can name off the top of my head, and those are huge names.
Yeah, and that chemistry between the two was palpable. It was really, really, really good.
Is Denzel Washington like as nice a guy as everyone makes him seem?
Oh yeah, it's pretty cool.
He is
pretty cool.
Yeah, I met him I think in '87. He used to play basketball at the Y in Hollywood all the time. And but just he was a good dude. Yeah,
that sounds like a very Denzel thing to do. Like I've never heard something to be like, that's Denzel Washington so much. Like I said this earlier too, you were in Caddyshack 2, which
Yeah, that was my first movie.
first movie. What was that like then, as being your first movie? And I mean, in all honesty, it's not like the biggest or best movie, but it's still a
No.
good size for, you know, a first role. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, it was kind of it really opened my eyes to sort of a pecking order of Hollywood, in that they didn't have Rodney Dangerfield. They had Jackie Mason, who really bailed them out because Rodney didn't want to do the sequel. And so they get Jackie, and they treated him terribly. And so it really kind of opened my eyes to, you know, not every set is going to be nice.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't have much to do in it since it was my first movie. So, but you know, worked a couple of weeks, and it was fun to be on a movie set. And then Chevy Chase, when he came around, it's like, you know, everybody was kissing his butt, but treating Jackie Mason terribly. Yeah. And it was like, wow, this is really odd, because Jackie is carrying your movie. I don't get that at all.
Yeah, I think I watched Caddyshack 2 once, like 10 years ago, and I was like, I think that's more than enough.
And that was enough. Yeah.
What was Chevy Chase like? Because I know, like, sometimes I hear like, yeah, he's a good guy, and other times I hear that he's the worst person on the face of the planet. Like, I hear
he was okay on there, and then he did a arc on Chuck, and he was fine on Chuck too. I didn't have any negative thing to say about him in those things.
You were also, I'm gonna switch into some of your horror roles. You were in Child's Play 2 and Halloween 2, or Child's Play 3. I'm sorry, and then Halloween 2. What was your experience doing, like, horror slasher films like that?
Well, the Child's Play movie, I ended up not playing the part that I was cast to do, because they kept changing the start date, and I was in a play at the Los Angeles Theater Center at the time. And so when it came time for me to work, we were in tech, and my agents were like, we can't pull him out of tech rehearsals to do this thing that you've changed the date 4 or 5 times already.
Yeah.
So then I'm at the very end of the movie, putting the kid in the car, watch your head, and that's it. And that's it. You know, they had to use me because they were gonna have to pay me anyway. So
okay, yeah, that's what I was like. So like they signed like a contract of like, whether you're in the movie or not, you're getting paid.
Yeah, once you're hired, you're hired.
Okay.
You know, and so it just worked out that way.
And then
Halloween, I actually did both of Rob Zombie's Halloweens, and the first one, what is it? Is it Mike Myers or is it Jason?
Michael Myers.
Yeah.
So, Jason is Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Right, so Mike Myers is supposed to come out. He goes into I'm a security guard at the facility that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he goes into my partner that I'm working with goes into the restroom, and we're like having this long conversation back and forth while he's in the restroom. I'm in the office, and so he's supposed to come in, kill that guy, and then come into the office, kill me, and go through the office window. And so we were losing the day. It's like time was running out on the day. And so instead of him coming out of the restroom and killing me, he just kicks open the front door and walks out, so he doesn't kill me. And I was bummed because the way Zombie worked was he would say, "Hey, so here's what I wrote, but I liked your audition. I like what you did at the audition. So I want you to just talk, just a stream of talking to this guy." And so I would talk, and then he'd say cut, and he'd come over. He'd say, "Okay, that was great. You said this, and this." It's like he's taking notes while I'm doing my thing. He says, I need you to say those things again. He says, but also just keep talking. I was like, okay. So we probably did, 6 or 7 takes until we had like a whole little speech. And he goes, okay, now say all of that. And then so we'd say all that 2 or 3 times. and then that was it. And then he didn't come and kill me. So then about while they were in post production, I get a call from Zombie. He calls me at home. And it's like, "Hey, Mark, this is Rob Zombie." I was like, "Whoa, no way." He goes, "Yeah, wait." He goes, he says, "I'm calling to tell you that I'm cutting you out of the film because he didn't kill you." He says, I'm trying to get under 90 minutes. He says, and because he didn't kill you, it doesn't really move the story. So don't worry, I'll get you into the next one. He says, but I want you to know it wasn't your acting. He says, you were fantastic. He said, I really love what you did. And he was true to his word. You know, the next one came around, and sure enough, he put me in.
So what are your thoughts now on the new Halloween 2 that came out a couple years back, and what are your thoughts on the canonicity of your film?
I didn't see it, so you know, it's like
I also haven't seen
it,
but
you know, Zombie did a very Rob Zombie kind of take on it, you know, which I thought was great for it. So I haven't seen the one after that. So,
and can you talk a little bit about your time on Planet of the Apes, and talk a little bit about Tim Burton? I always hear of Tim Burton from other people like him, like Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter. I never hear about what Tim Burton's like from, you know, a normal human being.
Again, it was one of those situations where they kept moving my start date.
Okay.
And so I literally was almost not in it because I was in a play. It's like you know, the good thing about actually being able to act, is you can go from one thing to the next. You can, if you need a job, you can do a play, and they kept moving the start date, and finally I get a call one day from the AD saying, "Hey, we have you on a schedule tomorrow." I said, "Nope, can't work tomorrow." I said, "You got to call my agent," and so they go back and forth with the agent, you know, of how to get me to work. Because I was in tech rehearsals for the play. And this time I was in San Diego working. And so it came down to, we will send a car to pick him up, bring him to set, shoot him out, and get him back to the theater by noon. And I get there, and Tim Burton comes up, gives me a handshake. He says, "Hey, I'm so glad we could get you." He says, "I really, you know, wanted to work with you." He says, "I love what you did the audition, love your face." He says, "So I want you in there." And really, I had been a big Tim Burton fan from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like that's my favorite Christmas movie, I think. And so it was great to be able to work with him and watch him work. He's another one of those guys that knows what he wants to see. And you know, in that short time that I was there on set, you know, you could see his meticulousness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the way this needs to be, and he got what he asked for. You know, it was very cool.
Did you get to see any cool stuff, or because I know you were in the party scenes, but so did you get to see any cool Planet of the Apes stuff, or no?
No,
was it just normal?
You know, like I live in San Diego, so I would take the train to LA a lot. And one day we started seeing from the train on this one stretch these giant sort of red tents, and we were like, "What the heck is that?" And it turned out they were the tents in Planet of the Apes. You know, so that was probably the coolest thing I saw. It was just, you know, out the window of the train, there's all of a sudden these giant tents over there. And I guess that was the place that was making the tents.
So you've mentioned that you've done some stage work and been in theaters that almost cost you some film roles because of the films are stupid and conflict. But so, what's our? I see that you've been in A Midsummer's Night's Dream, which to me is like the one Shakespeare play that everyone's been in at some point or another. What was what's some of your highlights of theater and some of your lowlights, possibly?
Well, I think probably my lowest light was when I was in college. I did a play called Jim Dandy, like William Saroyan. It's the first reading of the play, and our first stable read, it was almost 4.5 hours.
Oh.
And so the director cut the play down to 90 minutes. So people that were in the play that had major roles were now almost extras in the play. and so that was probably the low light of my theater career. Highlight was my very first play, which was at the Los Angeles Theater Center. It was Antony and Cleopatra. And made some great friends out of there, John Goodman being one of them. And it was before John started doing Roseanne. In fact, he auditioned for Roseanne while we were in tech for Antony and Cleopatra. Then probably my favorite works have been some of the August Wilson pieces. I played Gabriel in Fences, which is probably the role that in theater, I always say, I've never exhausted a role. It's like there's always more, and I wish we had another couple of weeks. But that particular role, it's like from day one, I knew who he was, and by the time we were in front of an audience, I was just, for lack of a better term, killing it.
Yeah.
And, one of my friends that I've known for since childhood came to see the play. And she said, it was probably the best compliment I've ever had, about my acting was, she says, when you came on stage, she says, I didn't see you at all.
Mm-hmm. She
says, you were a different person. She says, I think this is the best thing I've ever seen you do. Which was, and from me, I think there's truth in that statement at that point. And then I did, Piano Lesson, which is also an August Wilson play, and just a fantastic role, and had a great time with it. Got great critical reviews, except one guy. There was one guy who said, I was getting reviews like Mark Christopher Lawrence is a tour de force, and then I get this one reviewer who talks about the whole play, never mentions me. I'm the lead in the show. Never mentions me until the last paragraph. He goes, Mark Christopher Lawrence, I don't know if I'm feeling what everybody else is feeling. So I cut that out and put it on my dressing room mirror. I want to see that every night before I hit the stage. And then I did. I think the last plays I did were A Raisin in the Sun,
mm-hmm.
and I took a week off and then jumped right back into another play, Top Dog Underdog, and San Diego Critics Circle. I was nominated for Best Actor for both of those plays. So there was 6 nominations in the Best Acting category for San Diego Critics Circle. The Critics Awards, which they're called the, I keep wanting to say Noel Coward, but it's not. Anyway, San Diego Critics Circle Awards. So I'm competing against myself for Best Actor.
I mean, I feel like that's a good position to be in. Yeah. It's like, well, if I don't win, I guess I win. Like,
right. I think I had 2 shots at it.
Yeah.
And so they announced the winner in that category. It's not me.
Oh.
And then they start talking about this person who played such and such and this, that, and the other. And then my director for both of those plays was sitting in front of me at the award ceremony. And she just started screaming when they started talking about it. And turns out I ended up winning Outstanding Actor of the Year.
Okay.
So okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty good. Well, I had looked up the Top Dog Underdog and was just reading the premise of it because I'd never heard of it, and that's some like I have a film degree and I went to college and had to see plays all the time that were performed by college, and I saw a lot of like these more nuanced plays, and I felt like reading that premise, like that was an interesting premise to me. And so how is that? And because you played a character named Lincoln, semi based off of Abraham Lincoln, but a different person, like how is that working out?
Well, it was basically what it is. The character would, his day job, he dressed as Lincoln,
Mm-hmm.
and his name just happened to be Lincoln. And he and his brother lived in this little studio apartment, and the play is really about their relationship,
And his brother's name is Booth, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And by the end of the play, you can imagine what happens.
Yeah. Did you try and take, any traits or anything from Abraham Lincoln for that play, or did you kind of?
No, because it's really set in an urban environment, and
Okay.
Susan Laurie Parks, William Shakespeare writes in iambic pentameter a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
August Wilson writes with a blues pentameter. Susan Laurie Parks wrote this play with a jazz pentameter. And so when you're working, it's like there's a rhythm to it. And when the rhythm is off, you can tell. It's like it just doesn't flow right. And luckily, I was working with an actor, Lawrence Brown, who you will probably know his name, because from the first time I worked with him, I said, you are going to be huge, because he's really a fantastic actor. So he and I were working together on this, and every night, we would run the lines just to make sure our rhythm was right before the show. We'd run the lines. And the one time that we didn't do it, he had an audition up in LA and drove back down, fought traffic. And it was our last dress rehearsal before we opened. And it was terrible. It's like we didn't run the lines, and the thing was out of sync. It just didn't click. And the director said, that sucked. That was her only note. She goes, I don't know what happened between last night and tonight, but that sucked. You guys need to fix that.
Yeah.
She says, that's on my notes. Go home, fix it. And then opening night, it exploded and was just an incredible piece. Yeah. Susie Laurie Parks won a Pulitzer Prize for it. So, just a fantastic piece of work. Yeah.
I don't think I've thought about the timing in plays. I haven't thought about the rhythmic timing in plays. I thank you. I don't know where my brain went. I haven't thought about that since my 8th grade musical.
So
thank you for bringing that back up.
So how would you, because Shakespeare is also very rhythmic and heavy and things like that, how would you compare the two experiences of doing Midsummer Night's Dream to Top Dog Underdog and the rhythm of how to say your lines?
Well, clearly two different ways to work. I mean, Shakespeare presents its own challenges in that we don't talk like that every day.
Yeah.
It's like, and you spend, for me anyway, I spend the first week of rehearsal, just trying to get those words into my mouth. And then once, I get past that part of it, then, you're dealing with the extra, the acting work. What do I want? And trying to go after it. And as you're working, you don't really think about it, about the rhythm and the pace. And it's the director's job to make sure you're on it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with the way you're saying words and the way the actor that you're playing with are saying words. And if the pace is not right, then the director has to go, okay, look, I need this pace to click a little more, blah, 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 whatever. And so I never really think in terms of that. I just think in terms of, the basic objective of my character. What does my character want? And then how do I go about getting it? Even when the writer doesn't give it to you, you still have to play that you're trying to get what you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So doing both, what are some of the things you like and dislike about both mediums, doing film and television versus theater performance? And what do you think I mean, because I know there's positives and negatives to both. So
Yeah.
like, how would you compare them? And what would you say you
Well,
like about them?
well, first of all, I don't think that there's any negatives in performing, you know, because, you know, you're not out digging a ditch in 114-degree heat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Compared to a lot of jobs, it's pretty nice.
It's a charm. Like, I was driving down the freeway the other day and I saw a guy in one of those pumping trucks, and he goes to sites, like construction sites, and pumps out their porta potties. I was like, you know, my job sometimes ain't fun, but it ain't that.
Yeah.
So I always find the positive in the work, and as a stand-up, as a stage actor, I think I like that more than film and TV, because of the immediate feedback. You know, as a stand-up, if you suck right now, and you probably should get off that joke and get to another one that works better. And you know, in a play, the only thing that you have control over is your day, what happened with you throughout the day, and you don't know what your scene partners have gone through. You don't know what the audience have gone through. So you have to be present in the moment. And as you're working, then you find a way to make the scenes work, no matter how your scene partners give you the lines. And that immediate feedback, you affect people immediately. Like after Raising the Sun, one matinee, this little lady comes up to me with tears in her eyes. And she said to me, she says, "We just didn't get it right, did we?" And I was like, I just gave her a hug, because she's like, you know, sobbing. And you know, when you have that kind of power to affect people's emotions, you know, in that way, whether it's laughter or in her case, I felt like some serious like white guilt. She was like feeling guilty, and when you affect people in that way, you know, I think it's you have a responsibility to put your best foot forward every time. Film and TV, you don't have any control over any of that. You do what you do, and then hope that the editor does right by you, or helps you out. For example, in Pursuit of Happiness, the scene where Will Smith comes to me to get the $14, and he's got his little boy with him. My best take was the second take. I remember it vividly, because Will wouldn't watch the monitor. He came back, he said, "Man, that was great." And he goes, "You want to see it?" I said, "Nah, I don't like to watch myself, because then I'll be trying to fix it." And so his best take was probably number 5 or number 6. And they used his best take. And I get it.
When you're paying that kind of money, that's
I get it. You want him to do what he does. So I love the live stuff because of that immediate feedback.
Well, I like, as a audience member, I mean, I love movies, but as an audience member, I do much prefer watching theater, because, and especially when it's good theater, like even doing it when I was watching it in college, which is where I watched most of the live performances I got to see, like being able to have feel the emotion in the room with you. And like when you're watching on screen, like these extended periods of like silence that you need for like the unspoken things happening between two actors, like it doesn't feel the same as living in that space with them. Like, and so I much prefer that kind of stuff. And probably the closest thing I've had to that since college is because I work as a production assistant on things in the Chicagoland area. And I was on The Big Leap with Scott Foley.
Oh yeah.
And I worked on the pilot of that. And, you know, I was sitting in an auditorium after, I mean, I think we spent maybe 4 hours watching one shot happen of people dancing up on a stage over and over again. And then there was like Scott Foley and I'm trying to remember I don't remember the actor's name that he was talking to, but they were watching the performance of these people up on stage, and
Mhm.
they had like a private moments going on, and they had at the end they had the people on stage leave, and they were just going to now focus on this private moment that was happening while people are up dancing on stage. And so
Right.
the whole theater is completely silent, and he's Scott Foley's character is like deeply, he wants a specific dancer to be on their thing, whatever they're doing. I only watched the first episode because I worked on it. And 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 I like sitting there in awe, like almost in tears of like I'm seeing like it was beautiful. Like what I was watching was it was just between two people and being in the room with them as they're acting. And I just got to sit there and be an audience member while working, and that was beautiful. And then I watched the show and felt nothing when I saw it. I was like, I was so excited for that scene, and because I was like, the atmosphere in the room for me was like, it was like life changing for me. And then I watched it and I was like, yeah, that sucked, and moved on. So I wish everyone could have the chance to just like watch things being recorded, because that's so much more powerful to me.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's one thing I'm not liking about the pandemic, in that we're auditioning on Zoom and self taping, and you don't have the energy in the room that you have when you have people in there.
Right. I wish like it was like, first of all, that podcasting was easier to do this with in general, but like I wish I could be sitting in the same room as you, like to have
Yeah.
a better connection than just what we're doing here on Zoom.
Yeah.
But
yeah, maybe we'll do it again if I'm in Chicago, playing what's in Chicago? There's a club there that
we were just talking to Mark Scheffler the other day, and he was talking
Second
about
City.
a couple there's Second City, there's
That's the one
that's not a stand-up club. That's Second City is improv.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's the Shrine, I think.
I want to say Zanies or
Zanies. I think I remember Mark saying something about that.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of stand-up, I saw this was like, so this is not long after we scheduled you for the recording today. I'm friends we're pretty good friends with Dan Bublitz Jr.
Oh yeah.
Who I saw he posted a picture of you at the Speakeasy in Colorado doing stuff. So what's stand-up like? What's the difference with doing stand-up in theater and film and stuff like that? And
well, stand-up and theater are very similar in energy, except you don't have scene partners. You work by yourself, and generally when people try to work with me while I'm on stage, I try to help them stop.
Yeah. What's your most fun, like forced improvised bit of one of your stand-ups?
I don't know that there's a favorite, because I like to do my stuff.
You like to do your bits, like
I'm writing them. I want to say them, and so I hate when people jump in to help. So whatever comes to my mind, I just pretty much say it. Yeah. I think probably the most fun when I was doing comedy at a church one time, and this little kid during my setups, he was like agreeing with me, and he's like right down front sitting next to his mom, and he just kept talking during the setup. So finally I went, I'm gonna give you a present. And so I pretended I made him a present, and I said, now hold your hands out, and I tossed it over to him. I said, catch it, and he catches it. I said, now open it up, and he opens it, and I said, you know what it is? And he goes, no. I said, it's a sack of hush.
I'm stealing that. I hope I'm taking that for something. I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but
it's funny because that pastor said to me after, he said the same thing. He said I'm stealing that. He said I'm going to use it on Sundays because there's some parents that need a sack of hush.
Yeah. Speaking of doing comedy and doing church things, you worked on Shout.
So it's gospel music and comics that are squeaky clean. Okay. That are, and most of them, I think on that show, I think they all were Christians. So so shout and evening of gospel comedy. So it's gospel music and stand-up comedy. It's I had a plan to do like 10 of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then my business partner passed away suddenly, and sort of took the wind out of my sails. I only did 2, and then we stopped. I may revisit it. Gotta find somebody else to pay for it though.
Yeah. Whenever you're looking for someone to pay for it, don't come knocking on our doors because we don't have the funds for ourselves.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah. Booblets was. I was in Colorado doing a film, doing a faith-based film called Lying Together. It's a Christmas film that hopefully it'll be out this year. But we were at 9,068 feet up at Estes Park for most of it, and man, that air is thin.
Yeah.
Woo! I was wheezing. That's the thing about that show, Mountain Men. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know how you hunt like that. It's like the animals would hear me coming a mile away. What is that sound?
So as a performer yourself, who do you think has given some of the best performances, and who do you think we should be looking out for right now of stuff coming out soon, like in anything, theater, film, whatever?
I don't know. There's so many people that are just brilliant actors. It's hard to say. I often get asked, who's my favorite? It's like I don't have a favorite. Gary Oldman, I love. Jessica Lange, I love. James Earl Jones, I love. There's so many people, and I don't know what's coming out. I haven't been paying attention. Because I haven't been to the theaters, so I haven't really been watching. I know there's a Minions movie coming out because I did a commercial for Liberty Mutual, and it's sort of in conjunction with Minions, so I may go watch that.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show, Mark. Do you have anything of yourself to plug? What's coming up for you?
Family Camp, May 13th, a film that I did in the middle of the pandemic. It was back in June of 2020. We shot in Oklahoma. I was more worried about, we're shooting at this campsite.
Mm-hmm.
And the second AD, by the time I left, had pulled 26 ticks off of himself.
Oh. So
I was more worried about getting ticks and Lyme disease than I was about getting COVID. And so, but that movie is really funny. The Skit Guys. I don't know if you are familiar with those dudes. They're called the Skit Guys. You should look them up. Okay. They're very funny, and it's their movie, and they are hysterical in it. May 13th in theaters, and then my dry bar comedy special, Mark Christopher Lawrence, Clean Out of Compton. Check that out.
Okay.
I like that name. That's really. I like that one. That's good. That's really good.
Yeah. So and that's about it. I'll send you links to it so you can check it out.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for listening to this week's episode, everyone, and thanks so much to Mark Christopher Lawrence for hopping on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you. And follow me on IG.
If you liked this episode, come tell us your thoughts and join the conversation over on Facebook. Just give us a follow, give us a like, and let us know what you think. Also, you can share it with people from Facebook. Share it to your friends, share it to your family, share it to the weird Facebook group that you just randomly post things in every once in a while. We would really appreciate any of the support you can give us. You can also help us out by becoming a patron to the podcast. By becoming a patron, you get access to our private Discord server, our monthly movie review podcast, and you even get access to the unedited video version of the episode that you've just listened to. All the links are in the description down below. Okay, haters, that's it for this week. You hate to say goodbye, but we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.